questions. If you have a question, please raise your hand and we'll call on you, and then you stand up and ask it to the panelists. Anybody brave enough?
Who's recognized?
One of the things that President Obama had stressed in his recent address to Congress was increasing competition to lower prices. Because I mean, you can really disagree with the fact that increase competition to lower prices. So why not just, instead of moving to a single-payer system where there's only one person, there is no competition, open health insurance across state borders to allow competition, so that there's no longer monopolies and oligopolies within a state among insurance companies, but you compete across all state lines.
Well, I would, first I'd like to say that I think some of the comments, literally all the comments of Professor Brown were right on target. And the issue then becomes whether or not you're willing, how far you're willing to change the system. I thought the most depressing comment that the President made was his lauding the jobs within the insurance industry as a reason for not changing that structure. J.R. Reid recently wrote a book where he was being interviewed on NPR, and he talked about the different systems around the world. And there's no question that our system is overburdened with administrative, I don't know how else to put it, nonsense. Approvals and denials and back and forth. There is actually more than one clerk for every physician within our country. And we see as we have 23 primary care sites and 60 clinics throughout upstate New York, as well as our 2 institutions. We employ some 13,000 people. And we have an amazing number of people that are involved in just the administrative side of trying to manage a diverse system. And from my vantage point, that does not add value. And you would think that that would be one of the first areas to attack. And so from my vantage point, one of the great disappointments of the debate has been how to maintain the system, whether it's the pharmaceutical companies and allowing them to charge what they might, whether it's the device companies. It has become what has always been a standard, I think Professor Brown said it, a standard protect your own turf. And we're not going to be able to evolve this system if we continue to do that. So whether or not you have insurance companies across state lines or any of that, the real question from my vantage point is what is it that you are required to do in serving the public, and how much administrative oversight you really want to have on that.
I will add, I think your question raised is about means and ends. We're talking means here. And so a single-payer system competition is about how do we get to a point of more efficiency in the system is one way to do that, through competition or through administered pricing, we could say that. We're still losing sight of the fact, though, is that, and none of us have really talked about, is that this is all about health. What we haven't talked about to what extent any of this stuff that we're doing and that we're proposing to reform will contribute to health, making us healthier, promoting health here. So that is the goal. And all the other stuff we're talking about are means. So let's understand that, and so we can debate the means here. The single-payer system is a means, it is not an end. It is a means to an end, just as other kinds of things that we'd want to do. And so, that's why the cost issue is that if that were contributing to improved health, then we wouldn't be having this discussion here. But the fact is, increased spending is not contributing to that improved health, and that's why we have to do something about that. So I just want to distinguish between means and ends.
You know, I'd also comment that I think the example that Professor Brown used on socialism, the VA, is really the right example, because what you've seen in the dialogue here has been this creation of myths, these committees that are going to decide who lives and dies. Socialism, the concept was actually, I heard this, if you can believe what you hear, it was a PR effort on the part of the AMA years and years ago to attack some of the suggestions that fee-for-service would not be as vibrant And so they came up, a PR firm came up with the term socialism to apply. But if you think about socialism, socialism is a government running the institutions. They don't run our institutions. They create regulations for the public interest. We do get paid about 60%, as was mentioned, from public entities. So they're a large part of who we are and who we work with. But private institutions run themselves in our country. There are for-profit institutions as well as not-for-profit. And so the suggestion that the change of the system will cause a socialistic society is a myth, and it's inaccurate, and it's terribly unfair to our society. So I think that until we talk honestly about these kinds of issues, we'll never make the substantive changes necessary to really bend that curve, because that's what's going to happen.
Just to add to Bill's point, historically it is well confirmed that the AMA deliberately introduced the term socialism as a scare tactic, and the first time they introduced it was in the environment right after World War I, followed by the Russian Revolution, when it played very well, and then they repeated that and refined that all through the 20s and 30s. By 1946, they hired a private public relations firm, Whitaker and Baxter, which then presented it in images, but the words, the language, were already in the AMA political arsenal. Just one other thing to say, I don't know fully what you had in mind with your proposal, but I would say that if it's competition across state lines using only private insurers, that may be fine and may improve certain parts of the market, but why not allow competition across the line in a form of a public option that isn't necessarily limited to any one state and a set of co-ops in that state, as seems to be presently discussed. We have a robust public option and true competition between the public and private sector that would cross state lines as well.
All right, well, you mentioned, with these, myths and everything about socialism, but all of the points and parts of the legislation that they're trying to push are features that are in Canada, across Europe, which are socialist states. And they have these systems. Yes.
Canada's a socialist society.
Yes, it is.
It has no capitalist industry.
It has it, but the government manages a good portion of it.
Really?
And its healthcare is socialized.
No, its healthcare is Medicare for all. It's the same funding mechanism as our Medicare, which leaves intact a private system of provision, voluntary hospitals and the like. The government simply acts to collect monies and distribute them. There is no set of government-run institutions or salaried physicians. Physicians in their own offices negotiate fees with their province on whatever the cycle of negotiation is. It is not a socialized system. You are simply misinformed.
No, they're redistributing. That's what they do.
They just redistribute things through our taxes.
Right, and these countries that have these socialized systems, which they are socialized systems, no matter how you try to change it, they have said they do not want the U.S. switching to this system because our only comparative advantage now is pharmaceuticals. And if we no longer have a capitalist system in healthcare to produce pharmaceuticals, these socialist countries of Europe will no longer be able to get a benefit from our innovations.
Let me respond to that, then I think we probably have. You're basing your claim on the assumption that it is our pharmaceutical enterprise run on a for-profit system that is in fact producing our pharmaceutical and other technological innovations. Fact one, most of the money that pharmaceutical companies claim to invest in research and development is in fact a trivial portion of their overall budgets for marketing, for market penetration, for the reward of their executives with extraordinary salaries, for the payment of stock options. Number two, a considerable portion of the pharmaceutical and other innovations in our system in the United States is funded by tax dollars from something called the NIH, the National Institutes of Health, which we have a great deal of funding from in our institution, and it supports basic research and application of that, which sometimes become pharmaceutical products. Our pharmaceutical industry would dry up if it didn't have our tax-subsidized form of research. And third point, some of the most impressive innovations have come out of systems you would describe inaccurately as socialist. For example, you've all seen TV ads for Abilify, this wonderful new product that will clear away depression, etc., as a major new psychopharmaceutical intervention. Where was it developed? It was developed in Japan, which has a very capitalized economy and a fully national system of healthcare. Where were the imaging technologies developed? The first real breakthrough technology was the CAT scan, which led eventually to MRIs and PET scans and so on. Where was the CAT scan developed? In Britain, which has a national health service. You're simply misinformed.
What do you all think of HR 676, which is the single payroll bill in the House? I don't know how many spots will pass, but what do you think of its chances of passing? And do you think it's
0 to none.
Minus 0. There are approximately 90 co-sponsors. The only thing that may happen, Representative Wiener from downstate New York has been very, very active in trying to promote debate, and he has had the agreement of Nancy Pelosi and Henry Waxman to have a floor debate. So I think it will be largely a symbolic gesture to the floor debate. It will go down to overwhelming defeat, and that would be the end of it legislatively. I don't think the idea is going to die, and I think it will come back in various forms for a very long time to come.
I would just add that in the political texture of this, we live in 50 states, and there are differing points of view that have historically, from the very beginning, we have debated about whether we have a strong government versus not that. We started from the very beginning on that. And I would just say the landscape across the United States is not uniform with regard to how people view a strong central government here. So that is just a fact here. And so that is why we have political processes to deal with that conflict, that there are big parts of the population that like a strong central government, and there are other parts of the population that do not. So how do we reconcile that? I suppose some of us can say the other parties are wrong. But in a political process, we have to deal with that conflict. And it's there.
Unfortunately, right now we do not have any time for more questions in this room, but we are transitioning to a reception out in Hearst Lounge from 8 to 8:30, where you can feel free to ask our panelists any remaining questions that you may have.
And furthermore, we would like to remind you again that Our World, Our Vote is a nonpartisan group. Our opinions do not necessarily reflect that of our panelists and vice versa.
And can we have another round of applause for our panelists?
Recognizing and acknowledging our student coordinators who really put this event all together, Katie Barcelona and Descom McCurdy. Let's have a round of applause. I want to emphasize that our real intent and purpose of holding this event is to provide information about this issue for all of you, and we encourage you to act upon that and express your opinion at this most timely occasion as these issues are being debated in Washington. To facilitate that, we've set up 2 laptops out in the lounge with the reception, and we'll have them pointed to a page where you can connect to your senators or representatives or even President Obama and Vice President Biden, and go ahead and express your opinions. And we encourage you to do that regardless of what your opinions are. Voice your opinion, take this debate, and make it public. So again, thanks to all of our panelists, and thank you for attending.